Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Logos for a very special gathering featuring Carolyn Forché and Valzhyna Mort. My name is Travis Helms, and I'll be serving as one of your MCs for this evening, along with my good friend Jason Myers, a co-executive director of EcoTheo Collective. And we are delighted that you're here blessing us with your presence, with your time, with your attention. Logos gatherings are liturgically inflected poetry reading experiences. This form of gathering began with a conversation. I'm an Episcopal priest, and in 2019 was talking with a good friend here in Austin who is also a poet and an MFA grad who comes from a Buddhist background. And we were discussing how transactional poetry readings can sometimes feel, how it can feel as if you're either passively absorbing poetry as an audience member or simply discharging it on others from a podium. And we began wondering what it might look like to artfully, lovingly, non-dogmatically incorporate aspects of sacred ritual into the format of a poetry reading. And Logos Poetry Collective was the result of that conversation. Typically, we gather at Lazarus Brewing Company here in East Austin. So I invite you to envision yourselves gathering in an embodied fashion around beautiful polished pine tables beneath bistro lights with abundant chips and guac and queso and libations set before you on a table. And we've done our best to translate Logos's liturgically inflected way of gathering from analog onto digital. So following this word of welcome, we're going to invite you to take a moment of quiet to ground and center yourselves in the space. We'll actually ring a gong to initiate that moment of silence. And then our poets are going to lead us in a responsive reading of our opening invocation text, Bruegel's Monkeys. And that text will be presented here on the screen in front of you. And you'll see that there are bolded lines that are indicated in that text. And we invite you to keep your microphones muted because Zoom doesn't do a good job picking up from multiple microphone sources, but to still read those bolded lines aloud into the space to add your voice to that of the collective. Following the reading of our invocation poem, we'll introduce our first poet, Carolyn Forché. Karen will read her set, and then we'll introduce our second poet, Valzhyna Mort. Following our poets' readings, we're going to engage in a little bit of curated conversation and would love to solicit questions and comments from you via the chat feature, and we'll give you some more directions on how to do that as we move into that portion of the gathering. And our evening will include, with a responsive reading, again, a collaborative reading of our closing text from Poems for Moscow. So friends, thank you so very much for being here, for blessing us with your presence. And I invite you to take a moment to ground and center yourselves in the space, to close your eyes, perhaps if you'd like, to draw your attention to your breath, to the presence of spirit. And we'll ring our gong and let it sound reverberate for a second, and then read our opening poem together. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Bruegel's Monkeys, Wisława Szymborska, translated from Polish by Stanisław Baranczak and Claire Kavanagh. This is what I see in my dreams about final exams.
Two monkeys chained to the floor sit on a windowsill.
The sky behind them flutters.
The sea is taking its bath.
The exam is history of mankind.
I stammer and hedge.
One monkey stares and listens with mocking disdain.
The other seems to be dreaming away.
But when it's clear, I don't know what to say.
He prompts me with a gentle clinking of his chain.
And now it is my great joy and honor to introduce our first featured poet, Carolyn Forché. Sea washes the sands in a frill of salt and a yes sound. We lie beneath palms, under the star constellations of the global south, across, a sword pointing upward, through frangipani trees, a light wind, bats foraging. Foreigners smoke the bats out by burning coconuts, calling this the bat problem, or they set poisonous fruit. So writes Carolyn Forché, in the lines that open Report from an Island, one of the sundry, subtly sung pieces of perfect scene painting that comprise her most recent collection in the lateness of the world. Reportorial and oracular, these are meditations grounded in the specificities of soil, in the particulars of contexture, and in their lyric witness, hymn the mysterium of interconnectedness humming under all things. These are poems that lucently chronicle the absences that haunt and harrow us, the presences that ghost and guest us, and the truths that bid and bless us. Carolyn Forché is the author of 5 acclaimed volumes of poetry, including Gathering of the Tribes, winner of the Yale series of Younger Poets Prize, The Country Between Us, The Angel of History, Blue Hour, and In the Lateness of the World. She is also the author of the memoir, What You Have Heard Is True, a devastating, lyrical, and visionary volume, which was nominated for the 2019 National Book Award. She has translated Mahmoud Darwish, Claribel Alegria, and Robert Desnos. Her famed international anthology, Against Forgetting, has been praised by Nelson Mandela as, quote, itself a blow against tyranny, against prejudice, against injustice, end quote, and is followed by the 2014 anthology, The Poetry of Witness. In 1998 in Stockholm, she received the Adita and Ira Morris Hiroshima Foundation for Peace and Culture Award for her human rights advocacy and the preservation of memory and culture. Among their manifold virtues, Forché's poems, to me, perform the necessary and wondrous work of incarnating a felt sense of the inexorable connectedness of things. No gauzy mysticism, though. This reality of interwovenness gets enfleshed through the proximity of relationships rendered upon the page. Her poems present and present us to moments of contact, to what Whitman called as adhesiveness, human to the material and more than human world. Centered in narrative, they also tender an imperative to see the ways we scare and scar each other, touch and tremble, and summon us to salvage what can ultimately be shared. Report from an Island concludes, this work is slow. A low hum of ordinary life drills into the mind like the sound of insects devouring a roof. There is no hope for it. There is only sea in its yes, lights in the city of the dead, and a plastic island that must, from space, appear to be a palace. This collection took 17 years in the making, and how blessed we are to behold such slow and beauteous work, to attend to this life and writing that drills into the mind, and to bask in the sea of the thought, the yes, that such poetry instantiates, as we welcome to Logos, Carolyn Forché.
Thank you so much, both of you, Jason and Travis, for inviting me to participate with you tonight in this gathering and a very special kind of reading in which we hope to connect more deeply than we can often. I'm going to begin with an invocation poem called The Museum of Stones, and it's written for a musician who traveled the world picking up stones from the ground and collecting those rather than souvenirs. And he would mount and label them and place them against a wall. And he created a museum of very unimportant and ordinary stones that achieved their significance by being part of this journey that he had taken around the world. And as with all poems, it's also about something else. The Museum of Stones. These are your stones, assembled in matchbox and tin, collected from roadside, culvert, and viaduct, battlefield, threshing floor, basilica, abattoir. Stones loosened by tanks in the streets, from a city whose earliest map was drawn in ink on linen. Schoolyard stones in the hand of a corpse. Pebble from Baudelaire's Oui. Stone of the mind within us, carried from one silence to another. Stone of cromlech and cairn, schist and shale, hornblende, agate, marble, millstones, ruins of choirs and shipyards, chalk, marl, mudstone from temples and tombs. Stone from the silvery grass near the scaffold. Stone from the tunnel lined with bones. Lava of a city's entombment. Stones chipped from lighthouse, cell wall, scriptorium. Paving stones from the hands of those who rose against the army. Stones where the bells had fallen, where the bridges were blown. Those that had flown through windows, weighted petitions, feldspar, rose quartz, blue schist, Nice, and Chert. Fragments of an abbey at dusk. Sandstone toe of a Buddha, mortared at Bamiyan. Stone from a hill of 3 crosses and a crypt. From a chimney where storks cried like human children. Stones newly fallen from stars, a stillness of stones, a heart. Altar and boundary stone, marker and vessel, first cast, load and hail. Bridge stones and others to pave and shut up with. Stone apple, stone basil, beechberry, stone break. Concretion of the body, as blind, as cold, as deaf. All earth a quarry, all life a labor. Stone-faced, stone drunk with hope that this assemblage of rubble taken together would become a shrine or holy place, an ossuary, immovable and sacred, like the stone that marked the path of the sun as it entered the human dawn. This is a poem given to me in the story of a refugee I met. He was from Homs in Syria. I met him in Milwaukee, where I was teaching for the winter, one winter, and he was driving a taxi cab. And on bitter days, I took a cab instead of walking, and many times he happened to pick me up. There were many cabs in downtown Milwaukee, but for some reason, he kept finding me, and we recognized each other after a few of these trips. And then we sat, and the snow fell and buried the cab, and he told me his story on the condition that I would tell it or write it someday. The boatman. We were 31 souls, he said, in the gray sick of sea, in a cold rubber boat, rising and falling in our filth. By morning, this didn't matter. No land was in sight. All were soaked to the bone, living and dead. We could still float, we said, from war to war. What lay behind us but ruins of stone, piled on ruins of stone. City called Mother of the Poor, surrounded by fields of cotton and millet. City of jewelers and cloak makers, with the oldest church in Christendom and the sword of Allah. If anyone remains there now, he assures they would be utterly alone. There is a hotel named for it in Rome, 200 meters from the Piazza di Spagna, where you can have breakfast under the portraits of film stars. There, the staff cannot do enough for you. But I am talking nonsense again, as I have since that night we fetched a child, not ours, from the sea, drifting face down in a life vest, its eyes taken by fish or the birds above us. After that, Aleppo went up in smoke, and Raqqa came under a rain of leaflets telling everyone to go. Leave, yes, but go where? We lived through the Americans and Russians, through Americans again, many nights of death from the clouds, mornings surprised to be waking from the sleep of death, still unburied and alive, with no safe place. Leave, yes, we'll obey the leaflets, but go where? To the sea, to be eaten? To the shores of Europe, to be caged? To Camp Misery and Camp Remain here? I ask you then, where? You tell me you are a poet. If so, our destination is the same. I find myself now the boatman driving a taxi at the end of the world. I will see that you arrive safely, my friend. I will get you there. I'm going to read the poem that Travis quoted from in the beginning in his introduction. It's called Report from an Island, and it was written in Indonesia. I was there as part of a conference on plastic waste in the oceans. They invited poets and painters and musicians to this scientific conference. I've never seen that happen anywhere else in the world. But they believe that poets and painters and musicians should be part of the conversation and the discussion, and should bring the understandings that they gain into their art. Report from an Island. Sea washes the sands in a frill of salt and a yes sound. We lie beneath palms under the star constellations of the global south. Across, a sword pointing upward. Through frangipani trees, a light wind, bats foraging. Foreigners smoke the bats out by burning coconuts, calling this the bat problem. Or they set out poisonous fruit. The gecko hides under a banana leaf. So far, nothing is said. A gecko, mistaken for a bird that sings in the night. It is no bird. A healer blows smoke into the wound, sees through flesh to a bone once broken. In the sea, they say, there is an island made of bottles and other trash. Plastic bags become clouds, and the air a place for opportunistic birds. 1.5 million plastic pounds make their way every hour. The pellets are eggs to the seabirds, and the bags jellyfish to the turtle. So it is with diapers, shampoo, razors and snack wrappers, soda rings and six-pack holders. Even the sacks to carry it all home floats to the sea. Wind has lofted the water into a distant city, according to news reports. Most of that city submerged now, with fish in the streets. It is no bird. The man hasn't sold any of his carved dolphins. Geckos don't sing. The vendor of sarongs hasn't sold a single one. Prow, the boats are called throughout this archipelago. Spider-looking, soft-motored, waiting at dawn. Geckos can't blink, so they lick their own eyes to keep them wet. Their bite is gentle. They eat mealworms and crickets. This is why no crickets sing. No one talks about it, but people look to the sea toward where the plane went down. 189 souls buckled to the sea floor. The wind too much for the plane. The gecko now at the door. After the earthquake, people moved into the family tombs. Many graves now have light and running water. Others live in the dumps in trash cities where there is work sorting plastic, metal, glass, tantalum from cell phones and precious earths. The work is slow. A low hum of ordinary life drills into the mind, like the sound of insects devouring a roof. There is no hope for it. There is only the sea and its yes, lights in the city of the dead, and a plastic island that must, from space, appear to be a palace. This is Hui from a notebook. It was written during one of my trips to Vietnam, accompanying soldiers who had fought in the war in Vietnam and were there to visit the soldiers they had fought in the north on the other side. And they have spent the years since the war translating each other's poetry into English and Vietnamese. Hui from a notebook. We went down the Perfume River by dragon boat as far as the pagoda of the 3 golden Buddhas. Pray here. You can ask for happiness. We light joss sticks and send votives downriver in paper sacks, then have trouble disembarking from the boat. Our bodies disembark, our souls remain. 1,000 lanterns drift. A notebook opens in the dark to a page where moonlight makes a sound. These soldiers are decades from war now. Pewter-haired, steel-haired, a moon caught in plumeria. We are like the clouds that pass and pass. What does it matter if we are not the same as clouds? There was then the whir of stork wings and bicycle chains ringing. It is still now, the way the air is still, just before the mine explodes. Once we fired at each other. Now we pass silence back and forth. On the 10,000 graves, we lay chrysanthemum. Mourning on the island. The lights across the water are the waking city. The water shimmers with imaginary fish. Not far from here lie the bones of conifers washed from the sea and piled by wind. Some mornings I walk upon them, bone to bone, as far as the lighthouse. A strange beetle has eaten most of the trees. It may have come here on the ships, playing music in the harbor, or it was always here, a winged jewel, but now kept still by the cold of a winter that no longer comes. There is an owl living in the firs behind us, but he is white, meant to be mistaken for snow, burdening a bough. They say he is the only owl remaining. I hear him at night, listening for the last of the mice and asking who of no other owl. Toward the end, this is a mysterious poem to me because I don't know where it came from. I know what it says, but I don't know where it came from. Toward the end, in this archipelago of thought, a fog descends. Horns of ships to unseen ships, a year passing overhead, the cry of a year, not knowing where. Someone in the aftermath who once you knew, the one you were, a little frisson of recognition, then just like that, gone, and no one for hours. A sound you thought you heard, but in waking darkness is not heard again. 2 sharp knocks on the door. Death it was, you said, but now nothing. Islands, places you have been, the sea, the uncertain, ghosts calling out, lost as they are, no one you knew in your life. A moon above the whole of it, like the light at the bottom of a well, opening in the iced air, where you have gone under and come back. Light, no longer tethered to your own past. And were it not for the weather of trance, of haze and murk, you could see everything at once. Every moment you have lived or place you have been without confusion or bafflement. And you would be one person. You would be one person again. I'm closing with the poem, What Comes, which is for all of you who have ever made your way through the wilderness of chemotherapy. It's what I told myself when that was happening. Begins with an epigraph by the French resistance fighter, René Char, the poet. I brought from despair a basket, so small, my love, that it might have been woven of willows. To speak is not yet to have spoken, the not yet of a white realm of nothing left, neither for itself nor another, a no longer already there, along with the arrival of what has been, light and the reverse of light. Terror as walking blind along the breaking sea, body in whom I lived. The not yet of death, darkening what it briefly illuminates, an unknown place as between languages, back and forth, breath to breath, as a calm in the surround rises, fireflies in lindens and ache of pine. You have yourself within you, yourself. You have her, and there is nothing that cannot be seen. Open then to the coming of what comes. Thank you.
Carolyn, thank you so very much. I applaud you on behalf of all of our audience this evening. That was a spectacular reading, and I love that that poem that ends your book, that ended the reading. I just shared it as a way of beginning a meeting the other day, and it's lovely to hear it in your voice. Friends, I now have the great pleasure of introducing our poet this evening, Valzhyna Mort. On earth, where all disease is cured by walking, Zuber walks out of the woods looking to kill his loneliness, a sylvan angel of history, a bison of melancholia, a black van. So sings Valzhyna Mort in the extraordinary hymn that concludes her 2020 poetry collection, Music for the Dead and Resurrected. In the two long, riveting parts that comprise Music for Girl's Voice and Bison, readers encounter an elegy for a creature, a historical report, and lines that are by turns devastatingly beautiful and wildly funny. Consider this exchange between a border agent and the poet. Occupation, absence from history books. Occupation, naming things a tangle of hair. This self-deprecating acknowledgement of the work of a poet is complicated by the scale and scope of Mort's preoccupations. The political violence of her native Belarus and her current residence, the USA, sex, death, trains, trees that become ships, which Mort calls strange fish carrying strange cargo. Elsewhere in her poems, fish sing and chestnut trees are about to speak. The borders between the living and the dead, between animals and inanimate objects, are blurred, ignored, subverted, redrawn. Valzhyna Mort is the author of 3 collections of poetry, including Factory of Tears and Collected Body. She is a recipient of the Lannan Foundation Fellowship, the Bess Hoken Prize from Poetry, Amy Clampett Fellowship, the Gulf Coast Translation Prize, and the Glenarushe Prairie Schooner Award. Born in Minsk, Belarus, she teaches at Cornell University and writes in English and Belarusian. Have I ever told you about my life? Baba Bronya asks in a poem named for her. The speaker to whom this question is addressed is a brooding adolescent beset with all the worries and complaints of a teenager. For each complaint, Baba Bronya has a terrible recollection or reality to reframe the speaker's perspective. This tender poem, like so much of Mort's work, salvages from the wreckage of history moments of familiarity, grace, poignant sweetness. Her work reminds us of Jack Gilbert's lines, "To make injustice the only measure of our attention is to praise the devil." The measure of Mort's attention is vast, voluptuous, and generous. We're lucky to receive some of it this evening. Friends, please welcome Valzhyna Mort.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you so much, Travis. And thank you, Carolyn, of course. I hope it's not much of a blasphemy to say in front of priests that I'm speaking to you from the Church of Carolyn Forché right now. I will read some poems from Music for the Dead and Resurrected, and I'll read just like I slide down a hill on a sled without a stop until the last poem. And even though the poems that I am going to read as I'm sliding are all spellbound by Belarusian poetry, they are all written in Rome. So there is quite a lot of the darkness of the Roman churches in it, between the deposition from the cross and Caravaggio's Bacchus. Where am I from? In black basilicas, dragged incessantly down a cross, is a man who here resembles a dress snatched from a hanger. There, thick clouds of muscles, an overcast body, embodied weather of one hardly known country. a country where I'm from. Dragging him, they stick their hands under his armpits. How cozy their hands are in such a warm place. Through a cut in his chest, Eve watches with her one bloody eye. A cut in the chest, a red eyelash. But where am I from? Yes, a man resembles a dress snatched from a hanger. Inside black alphabet, dragged incessantly down each letter, is a man. To a telephone in a long hallway, as if to a well for water. Well, where am I from? Neither mamas nor papas, my round face takes after a rotary phone. A rotary phone is my gene pool. My body rings as it runs to put my head on the strong shoulder of the receiver. Blood is talking. Blood connection is weak. Inside the receiver, I hear crackling as if fire were calling. Who is this? It's me, fire receiver. But where am I from? Days of merciless snow in the kitchen window. Snow was deposited like fat under our skin. How large we've grown on those days. So much time spent at the kitchen table trying to decide where to put commas in sentences about made-up lives. Yet no one bothered to tell us that words once uttered crowd in the brain as in a hospital lobby. That time is supposed to heal only because once it was seen with a scalpel in its hands. You've made a mistake, you'd say mysteriously, pointing at the lines written by a child. Think of another word with the same root. As if words can have roots. As if words didn't come from darkness, cat in the bag words, as if our human roots were already known to us. His grammar, his orthography, his paper rag, bread, milk, butter, what roots? What morphology? What rules of subjugation? How is it even possible to make a mistake? He has physics, chemistry, geography with his atlas. Now, where are Václav's letters, 1946? What to do about the etymology of us? Our etymology, 1946 crowds my hospital lobby. The face of a rotary phone, the face of a clock, the face of a radio on the wall. These are my round-faced progenitors. But Václav's face, where? Again, a man resembles a dress snatched from a hanger. And where are his letters? One per week in his best Sunday handwriting, inside the receiver. Fire. How cozy are my ears in such a warm place. But where am I from? A post-war Minsk barracks, the joy of a first apartment, a coat, a jacket, a leather purse fat with pills. But where are the where letters from the where face? Evacuated face, de-evacuated face, sick not sick stuck through face, vacuum face, lab rat face. This country was tested on Václav's face. Now we can live in peace. So where am I from? A post-war city, barracks, the joy of a deactivated face, vacated face, a face snatched from a hanger. Absence as an inner organ. In a village known for a large puddle, where all children fall between the two categories of those who hurt the living things and those who hurt the non-living things. In a village known for being unknown, where am I from? A graveyard around an old church, the frightening alphabet around the village, an alphabet on gravestones, marble letters under the moth-eaten snow. Under the moth-eaten snow, my motherland has good bones. My motherland rattles its bone keys. A bone is a key to my motherland. My motherland rattles its bone keys. Eve watches with her one red eyelash. Under the moth-eaten snow, my motherland has good bones. In my motherland, people kneel before wells. In my motherland, people pray to the crosses of flying birds. A bone is a key to my people. The golden bones of my motherland are ringing. Put your bones into braids of graves, woods. Put your bones into braids of graves, ravines. Put your bones into braids of graves, fields. Put your bones into braids of graves, swamps. Put your graves into braids of bones, mother. Put your graves into braids of bones, moth. Put your graves into braids of bones, ghost. Put your graves into braids of bones, guest. Braid your bones neatly. Braid your bones bravely. Finger comb your bones into neat braids in our woods, ravines, fields, swamps. A girl, I sing in the boys' choir. Mine is a city defaced with light's acid. Among the amphitheaters of boys' mouths, my body, a slice of nothing. Muse with two tongues where wings should be. I begin with music thrown onto meat scales. In the city of acid, light speaks with the thin lips of streets, the thick lips of avenues, strings of light stretched in the doorways of milk and meat shops. Music thrown onto meat scales by saleswomen defaced with light's acid, by saleswomen whose hands are square like picture frames. Our saleswomen, who never see themselves in the canvases of great masters, have the most pictorial lips, arches of finest architecture, triumphant arches built for their language of contempt. They despise our hunger. A child's place is in a choir, not at the table. They despise our money. Children shouldn't touch money. Money is the genitals of our state. We fry light to the screams of light, and we live on light. In this innocent city defaced with light's acid, built not on bones, not on bones, not on bones, not on bones, not one splinter of human bones in our earth. We can lower our hands into our earth as into water. And our history book is stuffed like sausage. Verily, in your image, I hover in the glory of fish shops, in the chlorine of classrooms. In my stomach is the midnight of bread, the abyss of cognac. As a species, I am closest to a screw that loosens regularly. In a Rembrandt black bathroom, a girl child, illiterate, washes me. Left to right, my illiterate child crosses and underlines with a soaked sponge what you've made in your image. She wasn't born. She stood up and threw me off her back like the skin of an animal. I know a word for this, but don't ask me. Ask a cow, ask a dog. Verily, except for Rembrandt's right cheek, it is dark. Having picked a headful of vines, Caravaggio honestly paints the dirt under his fingernails. No, honest historians, this dirt doesn't mean decay. Under the charred nails, orchard, origin, and I'm a screw that loosens regularly. In its uncharted dark, women washing each other in the light of their cheeks, in the light of their knees. And now we're down the hill, so I'll read my last poem. It's called Poet's Biography. I picked your book from Sandeep's shelf. The poet's biography read, Lives and Teaches. Though the book was fairly recent, it was no longer true. I almost met you once. An almost meeting I remember clearly because of my embarrassment. I was having loud sex in a hotel room while you stood knocking at the door, wanting to give me your book. Now the trains stand frozen in a winter storm, and I pity the trains as if they were shivering butterflies, a whole herd of them, the last of their kind, stuck in the snow England has never seen. Sandeep is cooking dinner. You're dead, the lover's gone. Your book in my frostbitten hands.
Amen. Well, Gina, thank you so very much for blessing us with that absolutely transcendent reading. I think one of the great joys of curating these gatherings is having the chance to actually applaud audibly at the as each poet finishes their reading. So thank you so very much for that beautiful reading. Thank you, Carolyn, for yours. And if we were gathered at Lazarus Brewing Company in East Austin around tables plentifully set with guac and queso and libations, we then ask you to peruse the two final poems that our poets have provided. We'd have those printed on an order of service for you to read and to perhaps discuss these questions about which of elements in these poems moved you, how did the language help create the experience you had hearing or reading the poem. And because as a preacher, I can't refrain from asking the application question. What might this poem or these poems be inviting you to consider or live into in the context of your own life? And while it's a little bit unwieldy to have to host and curate such conversations on Zoom, we'd now like to just have a little time discussing these poems and a variety of ideas with our poets. And so Jason and I have prepared some questions. We'd also invite you as participants to drop any questions or thoughts you have for the poets into the chat feed. And Carolyn, I wanted to begin by asking, I mean, as Valzhyna so eloquently said, we are all acolytes and worshipers in the Church of Carolyn. It does feel slightly blasphemous to say, and I know it probably causes you some embarrassment, but I imagine that so many participants on this call have been deeply impacted and shaped and formed by your work around a poetry of witness. And I love the way that you define poetry of witness, as I understand it, as being born out of a condition of extremity, and that condition or experience that marks not just the content of the poem and the poet, but also the language of the poem, and impacts the style of the poems that are composed. And I can recall an interview that you gave during the early days of COVID Tide with the PEN organization. And you're saying that in some ways we're all living collectively in extremis, in this kind of condition of collective extremity. So I'm just kind of wondering if you, Carolyn, and you, Valzhyna, might sort of reflect a little bit about what kind of poetry of witness may be being called forth from us in this sort of season of collective extremity. I mean, I'm wondering, Carolyn, if your wonderful meditations in the lateness of the world are sort of like a counterballast of a stability to all of the kind of chaos and flux that we're constantly experiencing. But maybe if you both reflect on what poetry of witness might look like now in our contemporary moment.
Yes, are we back here on the screen?
We're back. You're pinned for everyone to gaze upon, so everyone can see you.
Okay, because I don't know where I am on the screen, but okay. Thank you very much for the question. I I think I was talking about the fact that all of humanity at once is living and enduring something in this pandemic. All of a sudden, and as a species, we are threatened by something we've never encountered before, and it has altered us. And in the past, I think 18 months to 2 years, we have been changed. And that is what extremity does. It changes us, it transforms us. And we don't live after these events. We won't live after COVID. We will live in the aftermath of it. And with ourselves being transformed by it, our way of life, our way of thinking, our souls, our hearts are all transformed. And I think what witness was for me was in a certain period of time when poetry about war and about forced exile and suffering due to the depredations of the state and political turmoil, when poetry was being written out of that, it was being seen or read as political poetry. And my work on witness was a way of reading it differently, of reading poems written in the aftermath, in light of conscience and in light of what we know of what occurred, whether or not the poems were about those events. Right now, we are living in a period of extremity around the world, and not only because of the pandemic, but because of the threat to our biosphere, because of our awareness of what is happening to the earth and to our human future. And also, I think, especially Valzhyna is very aware of and suffering from the knowledge that in her birth country, people who speak against the state and speak against injustice are summarily thrown into prison and prevented from contact with their families. And she can tell you more about that, and I hope she will, because it's been very much on my mind about Valzhyna and about Belarus in this last year. Belarus has been suffering for a long time, but in the past couple of years, acutely so. So I don't really see witness as something, one is not a poet of witness. One doesn't write poetry of witness. One lives in the aftermath of extremity, and whatever one writes can be read in the light of that. Valzhyna, talk to us.
Oh, there I go. I think that while no poet should be labeled as just a poet of witness, I do believe that all the poets that I love are in a way poets of witness. Or I think that all good poetry witnesses. And what's most amazing to me is that a poet is that when I read poets who are no longer with us, some recently, some dead long ago, I feel remarkably witnessed by them. It is always a big miracle of poetry for me, and the power of poetry in the way that in terms of being understood by the poets of the past, when I feel being understood and being supported and comforted by the poets of the past. For instance, recently I've been reading Wisława Szymborska a lot. That's why I picked her poem as our invocation. Szymborska for me is somebody like Bach or Mozart in music, where when I cannot listen to any music, it means that I can still listen to Bach and Mozart. And with literature is like that, when it seems like there's so much noise and there's so much screaming, and I cannot read anything. And this is a time when I can read Wisława Szymborska. And recently I was reading her and I was out in public in a coffee shop, and I was reading Nothing Has Changed. Yeah, the body is still a reservoir of pain, and I started crying just uncontrollably. And this will be an advertisement for wearing masks, because it turns out that it's really great it's very handy to wear a mask when you're crying in public, because you just go like that. you cover your upper face with it and wipe yourself. But I just was truly grateful for her poetry, and for that cold-blooded language that she has within which she writes. It's true that since August 2020, Belarus has been just engulfed in violence, and poets are very, very active. Poets are writing a lot. And sometimes it's very, very emotional poetry. And but still it's shared, even with the poet herself or himself knows that, well, maybe it's not such a good poem, but it is a poem. Just the fact that somebody's trying to find language for it is comforting for a lot of people, and it means a lot for people to see these poems. And I read them and I think, well, it will take a long time for really strong poetry to emerge. It will come in the aftermath, right? Even though it's very important that people are writing, and those brave poets who are sharing as they write are very important. And then the crisis, the humanitarian crisis on the Belarusian-Polish border started. And just a couple of days into it, a very, very young poet, somebody who would not even brave up to call himself as a poet in public, shared a poem he wrote 8 lines. And I thought, oh, look at that. It just, I carry that poem with me every day when I read the news. It was just, it went straight through my heart, and was exactly what I needed. So this is just me, yeah.
I agree
ranting about it all now.
I agree with you, Valzhyna, so much about the conversation with the poets of the past and with poets all over the world now. Robert Desnos, who was in the French Resistance, and he wrote a beautiful poem when he was serving as night watchman in Paris, there to sight the planes that might be moving overhead. And he saw all of his comrades all over the earth as who were fighting against fascism in the Second World War. He said they were like, he saw them as campfires lighted on the hillside in the darkness, and he could see the flickering of each of these souls was these little campfires. And he said, for if the earth is a camp lit by thousands of spiritual fires, at the hour of darkness, one bivouacs all over the world. And I see that as the darkness of people who have gone too. Their lights are still burning. So we needn't feel alone. We are writing in a very intense time, and we have to be awake to our time and record it the way Zbigniew Herbert said to in his report from a besieged city. And this is our moment, and we must keep everything. We must commit everything to paper and to each other, I think, as poets.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this recording, what's so important in it is the patience of waiting for kind of your true inner voice, your true inner music, your true inner rhythm to come in. Yeah. Because there is so much language thrown around. I feel very overwhelmed by stories, by voices, and it's very easy to be carried away by all the language that is being repeated. It's immediately picked up and being repeated, and to sit and record something at the end of the day or in the beginning of the day, for me, is the process of peeling the onion, of trying to get through all that language that I too go around and repeat, and towards that, towards that inner musical eye, where it's my words, which is really my silence, to wait for it patiently by the page. Yeah, so it takes a lot of patience in these very intense moments of very impatient living.
I agree. And it does take time, which is why we wait for the aftermath. But I think what we're talking about is not to write history itself, but the human response to it, how we respond within ourselves deeply.
Oh, yes, yes. That's the hardest thing, not to create an illustration.
Right.
Yeah, but to create a world of its own, to create a new world out of language, out of meanings.
Mm-hmm. And to perceive the sacred in the world that is about us all the time, including this one.
Yeah, and then to also make fun of yourself as you're doing it. not to take yourself, not to take it too seriously.
I love you, Valzhyna. It's so wonderful of you to bring us together, because we're very dear friends. And yeah,
we are so delighted to have both of you, and for the depth of your wisdom and the humor. I think that's such an essential part of both of your work, and Szymborska certainly. That's such a striking quality in her poetry. And I loved, Valzhyna, the way that you expressed the power that one 8-line poem had on you, that it went straight through your heart. I feel, that calls to mind the Emily Dickinson's definition of poetry, like taking off the top of your head, or which is certainly an experience I've had reading you both here in these last few weeks, preparing for our time together. And just two of the lines of yours, Valzhyna, that kind of had that effect on me are from Ode to Branca, where you write, "How did we scare God out of this place?" I was wondering if both of you could talk maybe about God's absence or presence in your lives as poets, and the significance of place in your writing. Places, there's such a deep sense of inhabiting the places in which you've been, and are kind of reporting from. So would love to hear your reflections on those.
on place or on the deity?
Both, or either. Whatever, however you're moved by
I think
place or
Valzhyna
deity.
should speak, because this is a very important moment for her.
Yeah, it is. And for me, I grew up in a atheist society. I had a mock Bible at home, where I think it's translated from French, I believe, where there were biblical stories, but then with a derogatory commentary. But that because of me growing up with my grandmother, who every day would sit me at the table at lunch and tell me her stories of survival, hunger, war, loss, the big questions of, what is justice? What is it all for? What to do with this kind of heritage? What to do with that kind of life? What does it mean to be a grandchild of somebody with a story like that? These questions, they were always on my mind. They are big existential questions. And I'm not somebody who goes to church, but I'm somebody who always thinks about the big question, and that's my devotion. And I find that a devotion in poetry, I find the space for the devotion. When I say the Church of Carolyn Forché, yeah, the poetry is my church, language is my church. And there I ask that question, what is justice? Because I open history books and I understand them. I read a lot of history books. Belarusian history is very complicated, and with every new generation it changes. And there is not a pair of historians who agree with each other on our history. And so I read them, and as I read, I agree with everything, and I seem to understand everything. And then the minute I close the book, I feel this great depletion. I think, but this could not be it, right? I know the reasons, the consequences, the events, the numbers, the names, but it does not satisfy me at all. It does not answer any of the questions that I have, which is how should a grandchild of that lineage live? How should one remember? How to remember without, how to remember violence without staying inside the circle of violence? How to remember violence without thinking of violence the whole time? What does it mean to remember? What is justice? What kind of justice can be found in these stories, in memory, in language? So that's what I try to respond to. That's what I try to think about. But of course, I cannot arrive to any answer here. It's and that's how it is, like faith, truly, where you arrive to that last step on the ladder, and that's the impossible one, right? That's the leap of faith. You can only leap over it, but you cannot step on it. And I think that poetry allows that kind of rising, where we know that the last step is unachievable. We're just gonna leap and find ourselves in silence. But that silence, I think, will be comforting.
This is what Valzhyna and I have in common. My paternal grandmother came from former Czechoslovakia and had a very harsh history and lived with us when I was little. And so I too had the grandmother at the table and in the kitchen, filling my childhood mind with all of these stories and this history, and weeping a lot, and the mysterious crying coming from the depths of her sometimes. And I was always following her out to the fields and helping her and learning to bake from her, just so that I could be next to her, listening to this, because she was utterly different from everything that was around me. America. She was completely not of America. And she didn't like it much even. She kept saying, someday I'm going to be able to go home, something that during communist times, of course, the whole family thought was a ridiculous idea. But eventually, if she had lived 150 years, she could have gone home. My feeling about faith is more complicated even than my feeling about history, because when I was a little girl, I was I was schooled by Dominicans. I went 12 years under very strict Dominican education. And so I had this notion when I was alone outside that someone was with me. I was alone, and I felt this presence all the time. And this was a very formative part of my psyche. And when I was a little older, I think when I was a teenager, I stopped feeling it. And I thought this being had gone away. I had nothing else to call it but God. because that was the language furnished to me and by the Dominicans, by my family, by Anna, and it went away. And since then in my life, it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. And I call myself a kind of junk heap person because I don't really, I'm not very good at adhering to religious laws and procedures and so on. So I decided early on that I was just going to make my way of living in the world and working. I would do what I could with my moments alive, and that would be it. And Monsignor Romero, the Archbishop of San Salvador, helped me to understand that. He said, you will do each moment live as beautifully as you can, live in the light of conscience, do what you must do, and then you're not going to get to see the end, and none of us will. We have our little moment, and all of a sudden we leave. And that's what we have. So he said, you don't have to worry about what's going to happen. You don't have to worry about whether it's all going to be all right in the end. You won't get to see the end. Just work, just do your best. So that's what I've decided to do.
That reminds me of that beautiful rabbinical statement. I think it was Rabbi Tarfon who said, you're not required to complete the work, neither are you free to desist from it.
Exactly.
I think about that all this. And I was also during your reflection, Carolyn, thinking about this wonderful line from Christian Wyman where he says, you know, I'm convinced that the same God who at sometimes calls me to sing of God would also call me to sing of godlessness. And that's an experience that feels pretty universal, however intermittent it may be for some of us, and needs to be sung and named and proclaimed as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Gosh, I have a number of questions that I would love to pose to you both, but we've gotten some from our audience here in the chat, and I know one of our participants is under the acronym ALHS and put a question in the chat, and I wonder if you would be willing to come off mute, ALHS, and ask your question.
Thank you. I just had to empty my name of like the other letters simply to just as a poetic and also a life thing. But my question is for Valzhyna, and this is a question I wrote in the margins of the book when I read it first time around. And this comes next to as if words can have roots, as if our human roots were already known to us. And my question is, can you talk a bit about the lyrical nature of investigation? Because in this book, it seems to me that they're not different, at least in the medium, because it's like a poem. You are recalling and linking and comparing things. So I was wondering if that is your mode of investigation and how you think of lyric along with your own attempt at genealogy.
Thank you so much. That's a very intelligent question. Let me try to rise to its intelligence. I do not think of it as an investigation, because I think in an investigation, you're very driven to arrive to some kind of a reveal. I think of it as music. I'm somebody who is trained in music, even though I do not have an ear for music. My life is shaped by music. After school, I would come home and I would practice 4 hours a day on accordion. A lot of it is just repetition of the same rhythms, right? The same melodies, listening very carefully. Especially I'm always off beat, of rhythm. So been very particular. I had a very, very strict teacher who I was really terrified of. So these inner rhythms, they're with me. And I do not, this is not, unlike what somebody might believe, this is not a book about kind of a tribute to ancestors, you know, a tribute to the dead. This is just this sense of existence where all the narratives collapse, where the stories, they fall through your fingers. You cannot repeat them. There's nothing you could do with this heritage. There's nothing you could do with these stories. But the music is there. The rhythm is there. And so I just follow the rhythm and I feel it with words. I feel the rhythm with meanings. And what I arrive at surprises me. When I was writing the book, I realized why it was that my grandmother made me study music, because it was her who signed me up for it and made me do it. But she lost her father when she was very young. So basically I studied music, and all of my formative years were shaped by music, because Soviet Union and Poland could not decide how they could share Western Belarus. And so my grandmother's father, who was a farmer, was drafted into the war for the Western territory of Belarus, and he died pretty quickly. He was not a very good soldier. And the only thing that my grandmother remembered of him was that he sang beautifully, that he made his own instruments. And so she worshipped her father, of whom she remembered almost nothing except this musical affinity. She hated men, but her father was the great figure who was the ideal human being. And what characterized him was that he sang, he played music. And so that's how music entered my life. That's how I was forced into it. And yeah, so it's, you know, there is no investigation. There's just rhythm and melody in the head.
I remember your accordion. I don't remember the year you came here, but I remember when you came and you had the accordion with you, and you had a little cloth that covered it to keep it from the dust. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have my accordion with me.
What year did you come? Help me. What year did you come
I
here?
remember myself.
You
You
don't
see,
remember?
I'm not very good with history.
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, we would love to continue basking in the glory of your conversation, but I want to be respectful of our poet's time and the time of everyone that's here, especially some of you, I think, joined us perhaps an hour earlier. There was some confusion about what time zone we were beginning in at 7. So we will thank you both very much for just, I feel like the reading was one kind of music, and then this conversation was sort of the variation on the beautiful theme. So thank you so much, Valzhyna and Carolyn. And we want to give our your adoring fans here opportunities, although I'm sure many of them, as has been evidenced already have your books. But for those of you that might need to purchase a copy or are looking for holiday gifts, we want to provide you with the opportunity to support Valzhyna and Carolyn and buy their books. And we're happy to have Susan Post here with us this evening. Susan is the owner of Bookwoman, our friends in Austin, the premier feminist bookshop in Austin. So all of our Logos featured poets work is available on the Bookwoman website, so you'll be supporting Carolyn and Valzhyna and this wonderful store in Austin. And then we just wanted to tell you a little bit about what's coming up with EcoTheo Collective. And so LOGOS is the kind of event offering that we do on a monthly basis virtually in this way. And actually later this month will be in person in Washington, D.C. Jericho Brown and Marilyn Nelson will be reading at the end of the month. That's an event that's co-sponsored by Image and the Henry Luce Center for the Arts and Religion at American University. And so if you're in DC, we hope that you will come out for that event, and it will also be live streamed, so you'll be able to tune in online. In December, we'll be joined virtually by Lori Sorborn and Angela Torres. And then in February of next year, Richie Hoffman and Carl Phillips both have new collections coming out, and we're really looking forward to getting to be with them. And then, so EcoTheo Collective is a sort of umbrella organization that LOGOS is one aspect of it. EcoTheo Review is another, and everything we do, we seek to celebrate wonder, enliven conversations, and inspire commitments around ecology, spirituality, and art. And so we certainly have felt the enlivening of conversation tonight, and hopefully some of you will come away from this evening with a renewed inspiration to commit your lives to witnessing and to poetry. And so EcoTheo Review, we're a quarterly print and online magazine. We publish 3 times a week online. A new review every Monday. Actually, Carolyn, one of your, I believe, former students, Hannah Vanderhart, is our reviews editor and is here in attendance this evening. So she edits a new review that we publish every Monday. And then the print issue of the autumn for autumn is coming to subscribers now. It features interviews with Ross Gay and Amy Nezuka-Matado, Kava Akbar, and some other wonderful writing and visual art. And we're working on the winter issue now, which will have our fiction contest winners and an interview with the judge of the fiction contest, Natasha Dion, whose amazing second novel, The Perishing, just came out from Counterpoint Press. So we invite you to follow along with all that we're doing at EcoTheo Collective at ecotheo.org. You can learn more about the magazine and about LOGOS, upcoming LOGOS events, and all the work that we're doing. Hope you will consider subscribing and joining future events and conversations.
And so now we'll conclude our gathering just as we began it by reading this closing text of our benediction poem responsively. So we invite you again to keep your microphones muted, but to still offer those bolded lines aloud into the space around you. Carolyn Valzhyna, thank you.
So this concluding poem is by Marina Tsvetaeva, who is a poet very dear to me. The translation is Ilya Kaminsky and Jean Valentine. It's from Poems for Moscow. From my hands, take this city not made by hands.
My strange, my beautiful brother.
Take it, church by church, all 40 times 40 churches.
And flying up the roofs, the small pigeons.
And Spassky gates and gates and gates.
Where the Orthodox take off their hats.
And the chapel of stars, refuge chapel.
Where the floor is polished by tears.
Take the circle of the 5 cathedrals.
My coal, my soul, the domes wash us in their dark gold.
And on your shoulders from the red clouds,
the Mother of God will drop her own thin coat.
And you will rise, happened of wonder powers.
never ashamed you loved me.
Carolyn, Valzhyna, thank you both so very much for blessing us with your poetry, with your presence, with all of your wisdom. And to all of you here gathered on the Zoom call and in the Facebook ether, thank you so very much for spending your evening with us. We hope you're enjoying some bright, brisk autumn days and look forward to seeing you later this month or at some point in the future. Go in peace, y'all, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thank you.